going to take a look at a few strategies for multiplying polynomials. The first strategy I want to take a look at is the vertical strategy. And before we multiply these two polynomials together, I want to take a look back at something really old, something that you learned a long time ago about multiplying numbers in this sort of vertical setup. So let's say we're going to multiply these two numbers, 32 times 21. Well, if you're going to use this sort of algorithm, what you would first do is multiply through by this ones place, this 1. So 1 times 2 is 2, and then 1 times that 30 would be 30. And then we need to multiply through by this 2, which is representing a 20. So we'd have 2 times 2, well that's 40, I gotta put that 0 in there. And 2 times 3 is 6, and then you would add down those columns, and we would have 672. So 32 times 21 multiplies out to 672. Now if you can do that with numbers, you'll be able to multiply polynomials in basically the same way. So let's take these two polynomials and multiply them together. Now when I multiply these two polynomials using the vertical strategy, I want to set them up just like we would set up maybe multiplying two two-digit numbers together. So 3x plus 2 and 4x minus 1. And what we're going to do is multiply these together. So let's go ahead and multiply through by that negative 1. So negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. And negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x. Now let's multiply through by that 4x. So 4x times 2 is 8x. Let's put that in the column where the x terms are going. And 4x times 3x is 12x squared. When we add down these columns, what we have is 12x squared. Negative 3x and 8x will give us plus 5x. And negative 2 plus nothing is negative 2. So multiplying these two polynomials together, this is what we have. 12x squared plus 5x minus 2. Now the second strategy I want to use is the horizontal strategy. So let's take these two polynomials, 3x plus 2 and 4x minus 1, and I want to multiply those together in a horizontal way. Well, that's going to involve distributing, using the distributive property. So this first term, 3x, is actually getting multiplied by both of these terms in this quantity. So 3x times 4x is 12x squared. 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. And now this 2 needs to be distributed as well. 2 times 4x is 8x. And 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Now we've got a couple of like terms in here, so let's go ahead and combine these two like terms together. So we have 12x squared plus 5x minus 2. The exact same thing we got when we multiplied vertically. Now the last strategy that I want to take a look at is the table strategy, or sometimes called like an area model. Now if you've ever done a Punnett square in science class, it's really the same sort of thing as that. What we're going to do is set up a table or a rectangle, and we're going to split it up based on how many terms each polynomial has. Now this first polynomial has 2 terms, so let's go ahead and split that into 2 and put our 2 terms in there, 3x and 2, or plus 2. And now this polynomial has 2 terms, so we're going to split this the other way because that has 2 terms there, so we'll have 4x minus 1. So now what we're going to do is essentially find the area. If you think of these as the side lengths of the parts of this rectangle, then to find the area we need to multiply each length and width together. So here I have 3x times 4x, that's 12x squared. 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. 2 times 4x is 8x. And 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. So we need to combine all this stuff back together and put it back into a polynomial form. So I have 12x squared. These two are like terms, so when you combine those you get plus 5x, and that minus 2 gets brought down. So we get 12x squared plus 5x minus 2 using that table strategy. I want to point out a couple of similarities of all of these 3 methods. No matter which one you choose, there are some things that you should notice have shown up multiple times. All of these 3 strategies had a 12x squared in them. All of these 3 strategies had both an 8x and a negative 3x that got combined into a 5x. And all of these strategies had a negative 2. That's because really all these strategies are doing the same thing. They're just visually kind of different in the way that they're performed. And really, it makes no difference which one of these strategies you choose, just so long as you pick one that works for you and that you understand what's going on when you're multiplying polynomials together. I want to take a look at one more example here, multiplying a couple of polynomials. One that's a little bit more complicated. So here I'm going to take this polynomial x squared minus 5x plus 2, and I'm going to multiply x plus 8. Now I want to multiply this out using the table method first, since that's a pretty popular method. So since we're going to start here with a rectangle, we want to split this up so that we have one side is split up into 3 parts, because this has 3 terms. So it doesn't matter if you split it up this way into 3 or this way into 3. Since I made it kind of wide, I'm going to go ahead and split that there. And we'll put the terms x squared minus 5x plus 2. The other side needs to be split up so we have room for those 2 terms. So we have x here and we have plus 8 here. So let's go ahead and find all of the areas here. Let's multiply each of these pieces together. So we have x times x squared is x to the third. X times negative 5x is negative 5x squared. And x times 2 is 2x. 8 times x squared is 8x squared. And 8 times negative 5x is negative 40x. And 8 times 2 is 16. So once we put this all back together into a polynomial, let's combine the like terms that we have. That's the only third power that I see, so that'll come down as x to the third. I have 8x squared and a negative 5x squared. Let's combine those and we'll get positive 3x squared. I have negative 40x and 2x. When those get combined, we have negative 38x. And 16 doesn't have any other constants to combine that with. So there is our product, x to the third plus 3x squared minus 38x plus 16. Let's take a look at this one last time, the same problem, using a different strategy. The horizontal distributing strategy is also a very popular one, so let's go ahead and get rid of that. So let's go ahead and multiply this out using that strategy. This first term in this trinomial here, x squared, that needs to be distributed to both terms in this polynomial. So x squared times x is x to the third. X squared times 8 is 8x squared. Then we need to take this negative 5x and distribute that term. So negative 5x times x is negative 5x squared. And negative 5x times 8 is negative 40x. And then finally, we need to distribute this 2. So 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 8 is 16. So here are all the parts that we have after multiplying this out. And let's combine some like terms. So here we have only 1/3 power, so x to the third. These x squareds get combined to plus 3x squared. These two x terms get combined to negative 38x. And that 16 has no one to combine with, so we have just plus 16. So here we have the same product, just found in a different way.